Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and attention coach, Jeff Copper. This is a historic moment, I think, really in the history of Attention Talk Video. We've been around since 2013 trying to provide content. Over the years, I have learned a lot from you, our viewers, and the many experts that I've interviewed over the years, both on my podcast and on this channel. And I developed a new ADHD intervention called cognitive ergonomics from the inside out. It takes an engineering approach to helping those with ADHD. And it's based off of Dr. Russell Barkley's definition of executive functions. In order to engineer anything, we need precise definitions of things, and we need some type of model that has repeatable patterns that's explained by the model. This is required to make objective observations to problem solve for fact. Up to now, one of the big problems in the world of ADHD is everybody's working on symptomatic behavior and judgments. So that plus a tool that I've developed called Attention Scope, which is a set of simulations and stuff that are used to bring tangibility to Dr. Barkley's model, we can now begin to study ADHD and understand some really fascinating type things. And so today, one of the things I wanted to share with you is there are 6 executive functions. And 2 of them I want to talk about today. One is self-awareness, and the other is emotional self-regulation. Now, understand executive functions are a collection of mind tools that you use to problem solve fundamentally. Again, problem solve is really the key. So the thing about these 2 executive functions is they're interesting. They require each other. To be self-aware, you need to be able to manage your emotions. To be able to manage emotions, you need to be kind of self-aware. It's an interesting kind of relationship, kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg. But one of the major underlying issues with regard to these 2 is they're in conflict. So understand like this. You have your emotions, but the model that I've built, it looks at an emotion just technically as a reflexive reaction. It's a reflex. If you trip and fall, your hands reflexively reach out to brace your fall. Emotions are an interesting thing because it's a survival mechanism. If you feel threatened with your life, reflexively, you go to fight, flight, or freeze. And in that moment, you're actually not cognitively thinking. So what's important about emotions is to know is that if you feel threatened, reflexively, you'll defend yourself. It's really kind of a survival mechanism. But also understand that reflexes are difficult to inhibit. That's why first responders go through specialized training to not panic. Now, the thing about self-awareness is many people are aware of your thoughts and your feelings, but self-awareness really is to be aware of yourself objectively. And so imagine this. It's a very, very threatening thing to be self-aware. Can you imagine being at work or just in the public and being completely nude? The only one in the room that's nude. It's a very vulnerable and a very threatening experience, right? So self-awareness is really like that. You've got to look at yourself as you are. And it's unnerving to sit there like nude, exposed to the world or exposed to yourself. Reflexively, you have a tendency to defend yourself or not go there. This has been interesting in my years of coaching. And even what I observe, there's a lot of people out there who know a lot about ADHD. You might be one of them, yet you struggle. Why? Well, I did an interview with Dr. Barkley years ago, and he said, most of our job is really getting people to own ADHD. And the idea here is to own it and to do what you need to do to accommodate it. And my point really is there's a lot of people out there with ADHD who know a lot about it, but they don't really own it. Why? Because they resist it. They don't want to have it. They fight back. And that's why they suffer. The trick really here is what do you do about this? And one of the things about there's a lot of people with ADHD or significant others that like their spouse or their kids have it, and they're like, I want you to learn about it, but they resist it for these particular reasons. And the thing about it is you can't get anybody to own their ADHD, and you can't get anybody to get it. It's an internal choice. So a lot of you watching this, I'm saying is that, hey, if you're like an ADD junkie, and you're really not seeing a lot of results, usually there's an emotional resistance. One of the areas that comes into play more and more is right now, I've got a lot of people that are addicted to phones and they don't want to admit that they can't control themselves and they don't want to get a flip phone because they don't want to have that self-awareness to admit that they can't control themselves. And thus, they struggle. They often call me up and they want me to coach them on productivity. I had a woman at one point in time, I said, you're on YouTube like 5 hours a day. She said, yeah. I said, it's the algorithms are designed to get you kind of addicted. She goes, I know, but I've surrendered myself to it. I'm like, is our work done? What? Like, what is it you think that I'm going to do to help you become more productive when you've surrendered yourself to a tool that is addictive? Like, do you have the self-awareness about what you're saying? Here's the point of this video is I wanted to explain executive functions that I've learned based off of my model or new intervention, cognitive ergonomics from the inside out, which is actually a new field of engineering, that you have executive functions that actually are in conflict. For those that can understand this and begin to recognize it, it puts you in a position to not surrender yourself to this, but actually see it kind of play out in your mind. Because at the end of the day, there's really not a tip, trick, or strategy that's going to do this. It kind of comes from the inside. And having the self awareness about self awareness and owning it puts you in a position to make some difficult decisions, but actually do something about it. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. We release tips each week. I've been doing it for 11 years. If you're an existing subscriber, I'm interested in your thoughts. You've been watching this channel for a really long time, and we're going to be doing a lot more content about the things that we've learned from cognitive ergonomics in a very kind of like fact-based, sterile environment to kind of help you begin to manage it. Also, if you enjoy what we do this for you. We certainly appreciate you hitting the thanks button, and any contribution would be greatly appreciated. So I hope this has given you pause to think, and I hope you enjoyed this edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.